Hi, I'm editor Bob Garrison with another video related to prepared foods' 6 power trends. Today we're looking more closely at the trend and technologies surrounding plant-based products. Joining me is Luann Williams, co-founder and Global Insights Director at Innova Market Insights, a global firm with expertise in consumer insights, new product tracking, and trends. Welcome, Luann.
Hey, Bob. Thanks. Yep.
Okay, so today we want to focus on Innova's exclusive information as well as your insight. When it comes to data, what do new products and consumer surveys tell you about plant-based products?
Okay, so when you ask Americans and Canadians what are key drivers for reducing their meat consumption, price and health reasons come up. So I think this is the red meat, and steak. Everybody tells me they can't afford to eat steak now. But taste and flavor are checkpoints because that's why we like it. Yeah, so health is a big barrier. The way Americans and Canadians reduce dairy consumption is they go for dairy alternatives. But we know that when Americans try meat alternatives, about a third are really turned off by taste and texture. But we're at the beginning for plant-based. So there's still a lot of opportunities in plant-based. We've only begun to scratch the surface. And I think people who are writing it off because the Beyond Meat's share price has been sliding will be proved wrong in the long term. I think this is also going to be technology pushed. I know in Europe, there's some governments that have plant protein transition strategies. I should say it like that. It doesn't only have to be plant, but there's some strategies. And that really comes to just looking 20 years in the future at population growth, at food security, what happened during COVID, the supply chain, not wanting to be dependent on imports and so on, right? So there's a lot of things driving it. It's not just a free market thing, it's a food security thing. In the US, there's a lot of discussion about all the people at the southern border. Well, wait till they don't have protein and they're hungry. You know what I mean? They'll be 1,000 times more. So all these things have to be thought about. So I think in terms of plant-based, it's just going to have a bright future purely because of the numbers and it's a resource issue, right? Yeah. Every 11 years, there's 1 billion more people. We don't have to wait till 2050. In the food industry, we tend to talk about 2050 and 15 billion. Well, what about all those years in between? Every 10 years, there's another billion, right? So there's a lot of mouths to feed. So that's where we are with plant-based. Disappointed about taste and texture, still too expensive. We know price of plant protein ingredients still too high, but there's other ways to do it.
Yeah, and so looking at just looking at this year, 2023, what do you see happening this year? How might it evolve, or how would you like to see it evolve? And what's your advice for formulators?
Okay, so I know I'm repeating myself. We've talked about a few topics, Bob, but I think there's going to be a lot more chef endorsed products, for example, because people kind of trust chefs when it comes to taste and texture. So that might be one way to overcome this hump, right? That if you have some chefs getting involved, I think stop trying to mimic meat and make something completely different. Make something that people know how to eat at home, how to sauce it up, flavor it up, spice it up, and so on. Make that easy to do. That's another way to do plant-based. We know there's a lot of novel technologies, but prices like cellular, the price is just going to be very high, right? Doesn't mean that it's not out of bounds for every consumer, but it will be at a higher price point, right? But there's some other things that could be at a different price point. If you ask consumers what would you like more of when it comes to the alternatives, plant-based milk is the highest. I think it's come the closest to mimicking where it's acceptable because you can very quickly change your taste to just accepting it. And again, anybody with Gen Z kids in the house, you see that a lot of kids, oat milk is now milk, almond milk is just now milk. It's just what they drink. So there is still a lot of consumer interest in that. And I still think if I were investing or doing something, I would stop trying to just mimic the meat unless I'd put it in curry or, in salads and things like that. So, and we still see that when we ask them which alternatives, what is better, what aspects are better than regular meat or regular dairy, people say it's healthier and it is more sustainable. So those are still two really big drivers for this. And they're the two things that consumers care the most about when you ask all kinds of things. health of the planet and
Yeah.
health of myself.
Mhm.
So they rate better on that. But if it doesn't taste good, people are not going to sacrifice.
Right, right.
So find a way to make it take that. An oat-based milkshake probably tastes fantastic no matter what, right?
Mhm.
So how do you now make the equivalent curry or something like that is a great way to do meat alternatives.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
you're
that.
welcome.
That's all the time we have for today, but I appreciate your time.